Hi, welcome to Let's Make It Snow. It happens to be snowy outside today, and I thought how apropos to do a snow scene and not hate that there's snow outside, but enjoy it. I took this photo from a park I go to a lot, close to home, and talk about a lot of my river scenes and rock scenes are from there. I captured this one morning after the first snow. And it was just so crisp and not dirty yet. And I just thought, I've got to go out and take pictures. So didn't do any painting on site, but I did get a lot of photo reference. So I'm making sure that I'm dropping this horizon line a little bit below center. I like the fact that everything happens down here. I really love this S curve, which is just a classical treatment or rule that makes for a really nice painting. Nice landscape. It sort of walks you into the background, creates distance automatically. In here, there's a tree line, and I wanted to be sure to get the clouds in. I'm working on pastel matte, and I'm working with a light blue hard new pastel. What I'm going to do is purposely, there's two trees here, I'm purposely leaning them in. The photographs in nature aren't always perfect, but it's your job as an artist to use what you need from the reference. That's why it's called a reference. It's not to copy exactly, but use what you need and then make it into something that will, create art a composition that works. And so leaning in creates a sort of a vignette and directs the viewer into this scene and entices you to stay and go back into that scene, go back and look around. All right, I think that's enough. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm working on this gray. The pastel matte by Claire Fontaine is a really nice texture. It holds, you can use water on it, but I felt like this gray will be a really nice neutral surface for color for this landscape. And I don't need to do an underpainting on it. I'm going to go in with muted gray blues in the background and just lay that in real quickly. This pastel matte has a wonderful texture, and so I hate to even work heavily and lose the quality of that texture. And I want to let that light of the paper come through. Just going to skim this in. I'm looking to see where else might I see this color. It's a little dark in here, a little dark. Keeping this really loose and simple, and just going to have fun with color. And then we are actually going to make it snow. I'm going to show you how to make a spray out of pastel and really let it snow. All right, here we go, some sky. I'm also going to enhance this a little bit with color. It was kind of amazingly black and white and blue this day that I went out. Just all cobalt blue, all gray, and white. And it was just gorgeous, but I'm going to enhance it a little bit with a little brighter color. Bringing the lighter color down towards the horizon. And the clouds, I'm going to go in with here's a sort of a warm white, and here's what I'm using. It looked like white to me until I pulled out the warm white, and you see that that's very much like a lavender gray. I'm going to skim some of this in, leaving some of the paper, just really, really, really light touch on this. And I'm going to leave things as is and come back if I need to do any more, to fill it in with any other, or enhance it with any other colors. Let's see, this is a slightly different gray. It's not even going to show. It's not going to make a difference. Going to leave that alone. All right, now at the base of these trees in the background, here's the color that I had used. I'm going to go with something that's a little bit lighter, slightly lighter value, because I see there on the bank is snow that's in the shadows and very blue. And I see this here. I'm saving my white for the very end. Where else, while I have a color, there's very few shades of blue in here. So while I have a color in my hand, I'm looking to see where else I can use it. gets a little light back here in the woods. The light will be hitting this area. I have to also note where the light source is and keep that in mind this entire time. So this top surface of the snow is a little bit lighter. And here I have a bank in front that was just solid white. It was bright white, but there were shadows on it coming off of a tree, some of the trees that are here. And so I am going to enhance this and add a little more shadow to it rather than having it just be a white bar that goes across the bottom. All right, next we're going to move into the water, which I see as if you live around Ohio, you know that there's a sort of khaki color that's in all of the rivers around northeastern Ohio. And it's actually very pretty. It's sort of a light khaki. This is a little bit intense. I'm gonna look for something a little bit more neutral. Let's see what this does. Actually, I like the two together. Here's what I had used, this dirty khaki, yellowish grain, and I have a very neutral, light grayed out teal that I'm gonna use over it. Sometimes you don't have to search for the exact color. You know, like when painting in oils or watercolor, you can blend colors. But in this case, you're not blending, but you're overlaying the color one over another. So here, real light touch, so I'm actually picking up some of the color in the in the paper. And now I'm gonna go over it with this neutral because there's nothing that warm and bright in this scene. So I need to just let it sit back and neutralize it a little bit. Could even go a little more brown, but I kind of like it. I'm going to just create my own creative license and let that be a little more cool green rather than the warm khaki brown green that we have here. I'm going to put a little spot of highlight here for myself, just as a reminder that this is where my brightest bright is going to be. So that is the top of my value range. Ooh, how pretty is that? That's that warm white. And let's continue. I need something dark around these edges. I've chosen a dark, sort of a neutral navy blue. I just need something dark. It could have been a brown, but you know, I'm keeping with the blue theme throughout this because I really want it to be almost monochromatic because that's what I saw that day. And so that's how I'm feeling. I'm channeling what I saw that day. You know, when you're working from a photo, don't just go by what the photo tells you. The photo may not have captured what you were seeing or the feeling you had when you were at that scene. But I use the photo as a reference, and then I use my memories, and I really try to infuse, I should say, some of my memories, the feeling I have about that place. Okay, back in here, it goes a little bit darker above, and I'm going to just really, really lightly raising this up into the sky, using that same blue because it all goes together. It's a little bit of that universal color that I talk about that creates a cohesive painting. Okay, let's see where we're going to go from here. I'm going to bring a little bit of a little gray compared to this white that I used, this bright intense white. I don't want the entire river to be that. I just want that burst of sunlight that's hitting it to be really standing out, and that's a gray. There's a little shimmer along the shoreline here. And then there is not the gray. Well, there actually is a little bit of gray. Let's do this. There's a little bit of, the sky is reflecting in this part of the river, and I see it as bright light, either the clouds or just the bright light of the sky, but it's looking neutral. It doesn't look blue, and I don't think I want to bring that blue down here necessarily. So I'm going to leave that as is for now. And let's think about softening edges also as it moves into the distance. I dirty paper towel, but I use my finger and then clean it and swipe. But I make sure each time I wipe my finger, I don't want to distribute dirt or the wrong color anyplace. And soften that. It's so distant and so dim back in there, such subtle changes, and I don't want that to be a harsh edge. What it does is bring everything forward, and when you pay attention to the edges at a distance that are, and make them blurrier, it sets that scene back, sets that distance further back. Okay, I am going to come back in and with my dark blue that I was using. Oh, actually, no, it's not. I was looking for something darker. This is a dark, dark purple. It's just what I wanted. I want something, I need this to go even a little bit darker. And then I need to come back with a neutral, meaning grayed out, dark blue, to get the reflections. The reflections are muted by, they sit on the surface of the water, so they're not as intense as the color in the actual land or trees or whatever it is that it's a reflection of. There's that, and I'm going to go even a little lighter back to this blue and just skim a little, very, very lightly on the surface, and it sort of represents the glassiness of the water. All right, moving right along, I'm going to put a little bit of the light in the foreground. Now I want that to be something that's not as bright as what's back here, and if you look in the photograph and squint, it's much cooler and it's much less intense. That's just intense saturated white, and I want the focus to be back there. So in the foreground, I'm going to go with let me find a blue-gray here. Sort of a little bit of a gray-green. Let's see if that'll do it. And I'm sort of angling this as if it's a drift, which it actually was. And I think I'm going to actually add a little bit of a warm, a neutral yellow gray. If I can find one that's the right value, that's the same value as what I just used, just to warm it up a little bit. The way you can tell if the value is the same between two colors or two pastels, if you hold them up next to each other and squint and they blend into each other, they're about the same value. This is a little bit lighter, but if they just sort of disappear into each other, then you know you have the same values. There's another one. When I squint, those might disappear better into each other than these two. That's a little bit brighter when you squint. That's a little more similar with a little hole in it. So I'm going to use that. So, same value, but different color, just to warm it up a little bit. And it does tie in with that water also. Okay. Now let's get into the white of the snow. We put the shadows in. Let's come back in. Now I'm comparing, there's so many whites in here. I'm comparing one white to another white, so I can tell how it works relative to that intense white. That's why I put that there. That's my gauge for the brightest white. So I want to choose something for this landmass, that pile of snow, that's not quite as bright as my bright, intense, warm white. So there's a cooler white. Let's see with a light touch how this works. This may work really nicely. I'm going to wipe it off with a clean paper towel. Make sure, in this case especially, that I'm not distributing any dirt on here. This is not as soft as a pastel. I think this is a Sennelier, and it's just not as soft as that, which was a Terry Ludwig. But that's fine. I don't need to distribute that much pastel. Nice. And now I'm asking myself, is this the same white as this? I think this is a little bit brighter. So I am going to finish this up a little bit. I'm putting a little more pressure where I want it to, where I feel like the light might be hitting it. And it just gives it a little more of a feeling of that bank being a little flatter. Okay, there's that. So I'm keeping my whites lined up so I can see the difference and I know which is which. All right, for this side of the bank, I think it's a little, it's hard to tell, maybe it's a little bit brighter. So I think I'm going to go with, actually I have, this is what I used here. This is a greenish white. It has a little green tinge to it. I'm going to try it and see what happens. It'll be, just a slightly different look. I also have a really light pinky lavender here. See that? Let me try this and see what this does. I think I like that better. Maybe a combo of both of them. This is sort of just some dents, some drifts in the snow. I see some marks in here, a little bit of light in here. And I actually like that pink. I'm going to bring a little of that into the foreground. All right, I have all those whites now lined up and ready to go.